Hey, welcome to Father in Our Future. I'm Anthony Vandegrift. I'm not the perfect dad, but every day, just like you, I am trying to be better. For those of you who are my age, and based off the analytics that I get for this podcast, most of you are about my age, some a little older, some a little younger, but you probably grew up hearing a lot of the same phrases that I heard. Not necessarily from my parents, but even from some of my buddies' parents. There's some phrases out there that are questionable, things that we heard growing up that we thought, oh man, this is tough, and we contemplated as we became dads, will I repeat this? Will I do this? And some things we probably have repeated without even thinking about it because it was so ingrained into us because we heard it all the time. What I want to do today is talk about 10 phrases that all dads and even moms should avoid. I want to break in real quick and let you know how much I appreciate you listening to the podcast. My prayer is that I can be a help and a blessing to you on your fatherhood journey. So if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. And if at any point you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email at fatheringourfuture@gmail.com. And if you want other good content, you can go to the website, check out the blog, and other free resources. Thank you again for listening. Be blessed. Do you remember when you became a dad and all of a sudden those New Balances just hit differently? There's something about fatherhood that impacts your wardrobe, and I'm happy to share that I can help you with that now. Fathering Our Future now has merch. We have sweatshirts and hats and other pieces of clothing that you will enjoy sporting as a father. Just go to fatheringourfuture.com, select merch, or click the link in the description of this episode and get you something that you will enjoy and be proud to wear as a dad. Dad, I want you to know I care about you and I am on your side. So I have a free gift for you. I've put together a 7-day devotional, extracted from my devotional, Following Our Father, to help you realign your identity as a dad, to be the dad that God has called you to be and that your children need you to be. Simply click the link in the description below and get your free 7-day devotional. I want to read Colossians chapter 2, verse number 8, not because I'm going to go in depth on this verse, but I just want to pull something out of this. This is a topical approach, not really the way that I like to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Colossians 2:8, it reads, "See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world and not according to Christ." This is talking about something else, but I'm going to approach this from a topical place. I don't want you to be influenced by the voices of the past and some even of the present that tell you this is how you need to do this thing. I don't try to take the approach on fatherhood of I need to tell you exactly what to do. Some things I think I've figured out well enough where I can give you some pretty good guidance and some clarity. But I recognize that your family is different than mine, that you're different than I am, and that you have the beautiful opportunity to determine what's best for your home. So I'm not going to step in and say, you're an idiot, because I also recognize that I'm an idiot and I'm not perfect and I'm still trying to figure this thing out too. I want to give you things that I learn that can help influence the decisions that you make. But I want you to not be so influenced by the traditions that were passed down, phrases for today's sake that were passed down to you that are not in alignment with what Christ would want you to do as a dad. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take 10 phrases that you need to avoid, and we're going to take a little bit of time and we're going to talk about them. Number 1, I told you so. This is a horrible thing to say to your kids. So here's the context. You tell your kid something. Don't do this because this will happen. You lay it out for them. You make it plain. Well, kids are kids. Guess what they do? They go out and they do it anyway. And then they're filled with shame and regret, and they come to you because they've either confessed that they've done it or they know that you know that they have done it. And they come to you, and you, in your infinite wisdom, utter the words, "I told you so." All you do at that point is push them further down. They are ridden with guilt and with shame and you say, oh, here's some that you forgot to put on top of yourself, and you just lay it on them. I told you so does nothing to benefit your kids. In no way, shape, or form is this what Christ does to us. God knows our heart better than we know it. And he doesn't come to us and say, yeah, I told you so. He doesn't do that. You know what he does? He forgives. I think the most beautiful portrait of this is Luke 15, the story of the prodigal. It's not really the story of the prodigal. It's the story of the father of the prodigal. But the dad had every right and every opportunity to tell his son, I told you shouldn't have been a dumbhead. I told you shouldn't have tried to take your inheritance early and go off and think you could do it better than I showed you how to do it. Told you so. No, you can't be a servant in my household because I told you what's going to happen. No, that's not what he does. What does he do? He waits for the opportunity to redeem his son. He waits for the opportunity to redeem his child. That ought to be the response. Instead of saying, I told you so, and just making them feel more broken, making them feel more guilt and more shame, come to their rescue. Now, this doesn't mean that you excuse what they did, but a good practice here is to ask questions and guide them through the conversation of figuring out what went wrong and what they could have done differently, and allowing them to see a better way forward that they contributed to because you asked good, guiding questions. And instead of saying, I told you so, and pushing them further down, you affirm them. I know you messed up, but I know you can do it. I believe in you. I'm with you. That is what you ought to do. Don't ever tell your kids, I told you so. The next one, you should be ashamed of yourself. I did an interview a long time ago at this point with Dr. Jim Littles. I would recommend you listen to every one of the interviews I've done with him. He's a PhD in family studies, and he shared early on, shame is the worst thing that you can give to your kid. Shame is the worst gift that you can give to them. You should never say to your kid, you should be ashamed of yourself. What does that do to help them? What does that do to bring about change? It does nothing. All it does is reinforce the idea that they now have of themselves, that I am broken, that I am bad, that I cannot succeed. When you tell your kid, you should be ashamed of yourself, all you're doing is saying, I validate that what you feel about yourself is correct. What you think about you right now, it's true. You are broken. You are bad. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Don't ever do that. Don't ever tell your kid you should be ashamed of yourself. Don't ever cast shame on your kid. That's not what they need you for. They need you to help them navigate the wrong, to navigate the shame. Because you don't want your kid to grow up thinking, I'm broken, I'm bad, I'm worthless. You want your kid to grow up thinking, I've made some mistakes, but I've also gotten through them. And I can handle what comes my way because I've been shown how. Don't ever tell your kid you should be ashamed of yourself. Here's a fun one. Number 3, I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it. I don't know that I ever heard that one, but I definitely heard some other parents say it. And it was one that parents like to joke about a lot. And parents joke about this. Some of them, I think, meant it more than others when I reflect back on people who said it. But, well, first of all, you shouldn't tell your kids things that you're not actually going to follow through with. And if you intend to follow through with this, you should probably go get some help, because taking your kid out of the world, we have a word for this called murder. Not okay. You can't get away with that. And so it's ridiculous. And so to threaten your kid because this is what it um, is to set yourself up in their life as an adversary. And that's not what you want to be. Should your kid recognize your greatness? Should they recognize your strength? Should they recognize your dominion? Yes, but because they have seen it, not necessarily because they have battled it their entire childhood. You don't need to come off and be this scary figure to your kids. You want them to respect you. You want them to have a reverence for you, but that's earned, not because you force it, not because you threaten them or else, but because you are someone who is outstanding, because you are someone with high integrity, because you are someone who treats them with respect and dignity. That's how that is earned. Throwing out threats, that's how you get rid of that, because it's just a cop-out. If you've got to get to the point to where you threaten your kids, you've skipped steps 1 through infinity. You've just jumped into another realm, and you've done something that is going to offer nothing of value to your kids. Some people think your kids ought to be afraid of you. I don't want my kids to be afraid of me. I want my kids to recognize that I'm someone of integrity, that I'm someone who is disciplined, that I'm someone who's intentional and proactive. And I want them to recognize that I love and reverence God. That's what I want them to see about me. I don't want them to see me and say, oh man, Dad could really get me. He could really take me out. I want them to see me as someone who's on their side. When you tell your kids, I brought you into this world, I could take you out, you're letting them know that they're in opposition to you, that they're your enemy and adversary, that they're not on your side, that they don't have your protection. It's also really dumb for you to say, I brought you into this world, because you didn't. You don't create life. You only create life because God gives you the ability to create life. And that's it. So we have to lie a little bit in order to make that threat a threat that we can't carry through anyway. So hopefully your kid doesn't call you out on your bluff, because that's going to be fun. You can just avoid that by not saying the phrase, I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it. Number 4, I'll give you something to cry about. Oh, this is a good one. Because, yeah, there are times that kids cry. And they cry over little things. And you get frustrated and you want to make it stop. And the way that you can make it stop is you can threaten to spank, to hurt, to do whatever you want to do. And I'm not at the point where I'm going to tell you that if you spank your kids, you're doing the wrong thing. But I am at the point where I challenge myself, if what I'm doing as a father is I'm making disciples. And when I think about discipline, I'm thinking about how do I actually disciple my kid in this moment. I struggle to see how spanking my kid disciples them in the moment. That's where I'm at. Doesn't mean that I've never done it. Doesn't mean that it's completely out of the question. But I do struggle to answer that question. How does spanking my kid disciple them? So I struggle with that. That's just where I'm at. But this whole idea of I'm going to give you something to cry about, if all you ever do is stifle the emotions, and that's it, then they're going to be emotionally stifled as adults. You're literally setting them up to struggle with emotional intelligence as an adult, because you're doing things like this because you don't have the patience, because you haven't adjusted your life to accommodate the fact that you have children. This is not about them. It's about you. It's a very selfish tactic. I'll give you something to cry about. If you're going to cry, if you're not going to just do what I tell you to do the first time I tell you to do it, why would you expect a kid to do that? I've said it before and I'll say it again. You don't even listen the first time you're told to do something. No one does. We need repetition in our lives. So this is a cop-out phrase. I'll give you something to cry about. I'll shut you up. I'll whip your butt. And then you'll have a real reason to cry. And then I'll be okay with it because I got my frustration out. Because the stress that you have harbored up, that you get out with your violence, then you don't have it anymore. And you feel a little bit better. You feel like, well, I won that one. Now they're crying because I got them. What a twisted way to think as a parent. I cannot reconcile that approach, that mentality with the mission of fatherhood to make disciples. So I would highly recommend that you avoid the phrase, I'll give you something to cry about. Now here's another famous one. It's my way or the highway. You do realize that you're giving your kid a better alternative when you say that, right? That it's my way or the highway. That if you don't do it my way, well, then you can just go out and you can figure it out on your own. You shouldn't be showing your kids your way. You ought to be showing your kids God's way. That's what you're doing. You're making disciples. You're showing them the path that leads to Christ. That is what you're doing. If you are so consumed with the ways that you're doing life and the things that you're doing and you think you've got it all figured out and that you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably the least smartest person on the planet. Because his way is better, plain and simple. And if it's about your way and not about his way, you're the one who's wrong. It's a good thing that your kid is no longer following you. You've given them the most beautiful opportunity to not go down this path of stupidity, but to have an opportunity to find his path somewhere else. When you get to the place where you have to say, it's my way or the highway, you have shown yourself to be off track. So don't say it. If you feel like you need to say it, you need to catch yourself in the moment and say, I've got to be wrong. Because if I've made this about me and not about him, I'm not even going the right way. My kid does need to go a different way, and they need to follow me, so maybe I should change course first. Don't ever say to your kids, it's my way or the highway, because that's also considered abandonment, and you can go to jail for that. So you don't want to do that either. Here's another one. Stop acting like a baby. I've heard men say this to babies, and this is really funny. My wife and I took a little trip to Galveston a while back, and we were sitting inside some little place at some little pub table and go cafe table, whatever it's called. I don't know the names of tables. I'm a dude, and we're sitting there drinking coffee, and this little family walks by. They have a little girl with them. She's 2 years old, max. And the dad looks down at her while they're walking right as they pass us, and he says, "You stop acting like a baby." And I start laughing, not loud enough to where I got his attention, but I chuckled, almost choked in my coffee. I told my wife, that little girl is a baby. I don't know what this guy is thinking. When you tell your kid to stop acting like a baby, you've got to realize that your kid is a kid. I don't understand. I mean, that's what you're saying. Stop acting like a baby. If they're not a baby, I understand that. But how, in what way are they acting like a baby? You're letting them walk around, so you're treating them like they're not a baby. So there's a big problem with the whole train of thought here. But at what point do we forget that children are children? I mean, I think about what Paul talks about. He uses this child analogy in 1 Corinthians 13. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I did all of these other things like a child does because I was a child. But when I became a man, then I put away childish things. So childhood is abandoned clearly at adulthood. When your kid is still a kid, expect them to act like a kid. Your kids are not adults, they're not mature, and they're not little robots that you get to program. Don't use the phrase, stop acting like a baby, because babies are babies and kids are kids. Children will be childish. Plain and simple. That's just the way that it works. Hey, if you're a new dad or choosing to embark on a fresh start as a father, I have a gift for you. I wrote a book a while back called Cut the Crap, direct tips for becoming a dad. I don't teach you how to change a diaper. That one's totally on you. But I do talk about 5 elements that you need to focus on as a dad if you want to be the dad your children need you to be. Now, this is completely free. It is yours. There's no strings attached. The only thing that I'd like you to consider is if the book brings value to you as a father, make a contribution by going to fatheringourfuture.com/support. But you don't have to. Again, it is a free gift from me to you. The link is in the description after the end of the episode. Click it, get your copy, and I pray that it helps you. Everyone has an opinion on fatherhood, but there's only one place that we should actually look, and that's to God, our Father. That's why I wrote Following Our Father, a devotional for dads. In this, I cover 30 qualities and attributes of our Father in heaven that help us better understand our identity as dads. Each devotional is followed up with a daily step so that we can take the principles of our Father and immediately apply them to our own lives. This is a tool and a resource in your hands that will bless you. Click the link in the description and get yourself a copy of Following Our Father today. Next one. Oh, this is one I heard in Costco one day. Everyone sees you behaving this way. And this is something that I probably heard a few times in my day, or at least heard on behalf of my sister, because she was the bad kid in our family. I was the good kid, believe it or not. Anyway, I'm walking down the aisle with my kids, and off to the side, there's this other little family. And again, this kid is maybe 3. These are little kids. I mean, parents throw out some really big phrases on little kids. It's just like the expectation of children being children is out the door. I don't understand. But this guy looks at his little son and he says, everyone sees you behaving this way right now. And what that is a statement of insecurity. That is a statement of, I don't like who I am. And if everyone's looking at you, what they're really looking at is me. Why would I let my kid behave this way? Why does my kid act like such a knucklehead when all the other kids here are acting perfectly fine? It must mean that something's wrong with that kid's dad. That's all that statement is. That is a selfish statement of everyone's going to look at me and judge me, and I can't take it. So I need you to stop being this way, because when people see you, they start to really stare at me. People don't look at you as much as you think. There are, 8 billion people on this planet? No matter how much or how little you think of yourself, when you walk into a room, you are not the center of it all. Some people might recognize you, but most people, by the end of their exposure to you, will forget they ever saw you. You cannot make life, and you cannot live life with the idea that everyone stares at me, everyone looks at me, everyone's focused and fixated on me, and then you have all of your personal insecurities where it's like, oh, I've got this on my face, or I don't like the way that I'm dressed, or I think I might smell bad because I'm so stressed and my deodorant's not holding up against this, or maybe someone's going to realize that I was this one guy who did this one thing. Whatever it is, insecurities often stem from things that are just ridiculous sometimes. And I understand people have insecurities, but if you would just start to love God and realize how much God loves you, you'd start to see yourself the way that God sees you, and you'd start to love yourself a little bit more. Plain and simple. But you should never tell your kid that everyone's looking at them, because they're not. And what you're doing is you're giving to them what you're struggling with. You're giving to them, everyone watches you. Everyone pays attention to you. And now it becomes an insecurity. Why is everyone looking at me? Am I performing right? Am I doing good? Is everyone going to approve? Or is everyone going to say, oh, look at him, look at the failure, look at the mistakes? You're putting pressure and stress on your kids that they can't handle, because you can't handle it either. And it's sad that you, knowingly or unknowingly, would take something that burdens you and then try to put it onto your kid. Don't ever tell your kid, everyone sees you behaving this way. Here's one that I'm guilty of. I said this to my son one day and immediately caught myself and thought, what a failure of a father. He did something and it was a little crazy. And I said, what's wrong with you? And as soon as I uttered those words, I just stopped and I thought to myself, what have I done? Why did I just say that to my kid? Because there's nothing wrong with him. Making a mistake doesn't qualify you as wrong, as broken, as bad. Just because you do something once doesn't grant you this whole identity attached to that one thing. You don't become this lifelong destined thief because you steal something one time. Especially as a child, they don't know. They need us to teach and to disciple and to guide and to lead them. They need that from us. And so as they try to navigate and figure everything out, they make mistakes along the way. This is simply what happens. And to say what's wrong with you. I was pretty quick to apologize after that one. I even got home, I told my wife because I felt so bad. I looked at him and I said, what's wrong with you? And she was like, and I was like, I know. I said, I retracted that as quickly as I could because I realized that I should never say that to my child. I should never look at my child and say, what's wrong with you? Because I can't, out of one side of my mouth, say, what's wrong with you? And out of the other side of my mouth, say that my children are the greatest blessings in my life. I can't. Because those two things don't align. They don't mesh. It's like water and oil. They don't mix. You can't talk about how much you love your kids and how great they are, and at the same time look them in the eyes and say, what's wrong with you? So don't ever speak to your kid and pose the question, what's wrong with you? Next one. So I wrote down because I said so. And another phrase that I did jot down that was often attached to this was one that I never really heard, but it was a popular one, I feel like, for my parents' generation. And that was, do as I say, not as I do. But we'll focus on the because I said so. If you have to say, because I said so, and let me preface it with this. There are times, I think, in moments, where telling your kid to do something without an explanation is okay. But explanation needs to come at some point. Sometimes you need your kid to do something and you need them to do it quickly and you need them to not question you. Great. As long as you're not having your kid do something that is ridiculous simply because you want them to do it, because it's out of your personal selfish want and not out of a need for the betterment of the family, then I get that. I'm okay with that. But by and large, we should be willing to explain ourselves to our kids. And that's an old school idea that that's not accepted. It's an idea not accepted by the old school parenting thought, that I have to explain myself to my kids, that I have to tell my kids, I want you to do this, and here's the reason why. That was never how it was. It was, you do what I tell you to do because I said so. And that was it. That was the only explanation that you got. That was all that you needed, because I said so. Again, your kids are your kids because you have the responsibility of leading, stewarding, guiding, and discipling them. They need explanation from you. They want it, but they also need it. They need to understand, and you're the one who teaches them why they do the things that they do, why you ask them to do things that you ask them to do. If you're asking them to do things that exclusively serve you, you're not being a parent, you're being a slave master. Your kids are not here to serve you. Your kids are not here to be your little slaves or your little butlers or your little maids. That's not why you have kids. You don't have kids so that you no longer have to cut the grass or do the dishes or take the trash out. You're still a contributor to your home because It ought to be yours in the greatest sense of that, especially if you want to be the leader of the home. You ought to be setting the greatest example. You ought to be doing so much in your home that it inspires others in your home to get involved. And when your kids ask, well, why do you do that? Or why would you want me to do it this way? Or why are you having me do this? This is an opportunity for you to say, here's why. Here's what this does for the home. Here's the value that this brings. I want you to do this because of A, B, and C. You've got to be able to explain yourself to your kids. Because if you can't explain yourself to your kids, you're probably having them do things that don't make any sense. And one day they'll find you out. And this is going to be a bad interaction with you. Because one day they're going to realize, Dad just kind of used and abused me. Dad just took advantage of the fact that I was there. What did he teach me? And that's not what you want. And because you said so, as if you're the one who makes the rules, if you're the one who makes the law, that you're the one who's got it all figured out. It's this way because I said so. There's so much left for us to learn than what we actually know. And that will always be the case. That will always be our reality. That there will be so much left for us to learn than what we presently know. When you say, because I said so, and you can't provide an explanation, all you're doing is pushing your kids further and further away from you. Don't ever say to your kids, because I said so. Again, small exception to the rule, but by and large, you should be able to provide at least a brief explanation or I'll tell you later, but please do it now. So yeah, don't ever say, because I said so. Here's the last one, number 10. After all I've done for you. This is a big one, because if you say things like this, if you speak to your kid and you say, after all I've done for you, what you've done is you've exposed yourself. You've exposed yourself because you're revealing that you've not really loved your kids. You're revealing that this was all a transaction and an exchange for you. Because here's the context of this. Your kid doesn't do something that you want them to do. Your kid fails to do something that you think they should do. Your kid doesn't show appreciation back to you in the way that you think they should. Your kid calls you out and questions you on something, and you think that's not acceptable. And you use the line, after all I've done for you. You would question. You would do things differently. You would not come and do this. You would not just, jump whenever I say jump. After all I've done, you won't do this. If you're doing the things that you're doing so that you can manipulate your kid to do what you want them to do later, this is not love. This is a transaction. I'm going to do these things for you. I'm going to keep a roof over your head. I'm going to get you clothes as you need them. I'm going to buy you new shoes. I'm going to let you be a part of all of these different athletic programs. I'm going to take you on a vacation once a year. I'm going to do all the things that I have the obligation to do so that you fit in with the rest of the crowd. But I'm doing this because I'm supposed to do it, and because I've done it, you're going to do some stuff for me. That's not love. That is a transaction. And if that's how you're approaching it, one day your kid is going to realize, all this time, I thought I was loved. But that's not what I got. This was all a game. This was all an exchange. This was all done so that one day they could come in and cash out their investment. You should never, ever have place to speak to your kids and say, after all I've done for you. God doesn't do any of these things for us. I mean, you go through the list of what we talked about. God could say, I told you so. God doesn't. You make a mistake, God doesn't say, well, it's in my word that you shouldn't do this. What are you thinking? God doesn't do that. You know what God does? He redeems. God gives grace. God gives mercy. You should be ashamed of yourself. Christ came into the world not to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. God doesn't throw shame on us. I brought you into this world and I could take you out. Yeah, he could do that. He could, and he doesn't. Instead, he came into this world so that he could redeem us. That's what he did. I'll give you something to cry about. No. He gives us something to rejoice about. He gives us something to be grateful for. It's my way or the highway. Well, that one, yeah, it's a one-way track. That's true, but he doesn't say that. He lets us know you can either choose this way or there's option B. Option B is not so great, and then he encourages us to follow him. But God's the exception to this rule. Stop acting like a baby. Yeah, he might have said that to Elijah. But overall, he encourages us. He affirms us. Everyone sees you behaving this way. No, he doesn't do that. What's wrong with you? He knows what's wrong with us. Yet he chooses to embrace us. He doesn't throw that back in our face. Because I said so, well, God gets to say that. And after all I've done for you, nope. He died for us while we were sinners. And he rests with that decision. People have denied him, rebuked him, refused him, and he doesn't come to them and say, after all I've done for you, you're going to do this? Nope. He did what he did for them anyway, knowing they might reject it. But I love them, and I'm going to do it anyway. These are 10 phrases that you should absolutely stay away from as a dad. One more time. Don't ever say these things. I told you so. You should be ashamed of yourself. I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it. I'll give you something to cry about. It's my way or the highway. Stop acting like a baby. Everyone sees you behaving this way. What's wrong with you? Because I said so, after all I've done for you. Those phrases, and there's probably more, just need to be cast out of your vocabulary. Don't ever react, respond, or threaten your kids by saying any of that garbage. Because there's a better way. There's a way that gets away from the old traditions and that more faithfully honors Christ. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your word. We thank you for your example, God, that gives us guidance. Your example that we can look to and learn from. Your example that teaches us what we ought to do as parents, as fathers, to deal with our kids in a way that's faithful in the way that you've dealt with us. God, I pray that you would give us wisdom. I pray that you would give us patience, that when things go awry, and they will because kids are kids, but when those times happen, God, help us to wait, to not react, but to respond, to not react with a traditional phrase that maybe we heard growing up as a child, or maybe we heard used from other parents. But God, help us to respond with the grace that you would want us to respond with, to speak with love as you speak to us. God, help us to do this, to be faithful as we father our children. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, that was fun. Thanks for sticking around for that one. I want you to know that you're going to make mistakes, and there might be a time or two where you say one of these things. If you say it, I'm not going to look at you and say, I told you so, or you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm here to help you. If you need help, if you need an alternative, what do I say? What do I do in this circumstance? You can reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help you. I've got 4 kids. I'm not the perfect dad, but again, I am trying to be better every single day, and I'll give you the guidance that I know to give. But you can reach out to me, fatheringourfuture@gmail.com, and I will help you as quickly as I'm able to. But right now, I want to thank you for being with me and for being a part of this podcast. This is Fathering Our Future. I'm Anthony Vandegrift, and I hope you'll join me next time. Hey, one more time, I want to thank you for listening to Fathering Our Future. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do so wherever you listen and consider leaving a nice review because I would appreciate that. But if you're not connected to Fathering Our Future on social media, you can find it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And there you're going to get some additional content on a more regular basis that you don't always get here on the podcast. Now, the last thing that I would like to ask of you is that you would consider becoming a financial partner of Fathering Our Future, because dads make a difference, and dads are not disposable. Dads are vital, and they are essential, and they are needed. And the impact that dads make doesn't just reside in the home, but it has a ripple effect that goes to churches and communities and culture. And I'm inviting you to be a part of equipping and empowering and educating dads to be the dad that God has called them to be and that their children need them to be. You can become a financial partner with Fathering Our Future. It can be a one-time contribution, a monthly commitment. But by doing that, you play a direct role in impacting dads. You can check the link in the description below. You can pray about it. You can get on board. And I thank you in advance for becoming a part of Fathering Our Future in a special and a dynamic way. God bless you.